There's a region in South America that seems awkward, out of its place, but quite interesting. This is a place where Spanish, French, Portuguese, Dutch, and English speakers all meet, where the French and EU flags wave on poles, and where indigenous groups live side by side with African communities. I'm talking about the Guyanas, the northeastern chunk of South America, and we're going to explore it today. Hello and welcome to 7 Facts. The region of the Guyanas is a territory encompassing today the countries of Suriname and Guyana, the French Overseas Department of French Guiana, the Guiana region of Venezuela, and the Brazilian state of Amapá. So how did they come to be? Well, before the arrival of European explorers, this was a region populated by Arawak Indians combined with Caribs. These two groups, although rivals, became so much alike that, for Europeans, they were indistinguishable. For Europeans, Guyana became the region between the Orinoco, the Rio Negro, and the Amazon, and was soon to become the target for 5 colonial powers. While Columbus first spotted the coast of Guyana in 1498, it was only a century later that interest spiked in this region. Sir Walter Raleigh began exploring the place in search of Manoa, a legendary city of a legendary king known as El Dorado. After the publication of his accounts, Guyana became famous, and the Dutch, the French, and the English joined the Spanish and Portuguese explorers who were already there. Even the Italians sent a small expedition to Guyana. The next couple of centuries were a mixture of failed settlements, harassment between these settlements, and ultimately the establishment of many sugar plantations. Gradually, things settled down, and by 1814, the Guyanas became known individually as British Guiana, French Guiana, and Dutch Guiana. What used to be Dutch Guiana is today the country of Suriname. The first Europeans to settle here were not the Dutch, but the English, with the establishment of Marshall's Creek. Disputes arose constantly for control of this territory because it was an excellent place for sugar plantations. In 1667, in the Treaty of Breda, the Dutch kept the lucrative Suriname plantations they had gained from the English. On the other hand, the English kept the North American Dutch colony of New Amsterdam, an economic hub that the English renamed New York. Soon, coffee, cocoa, sugarcane, and cotton plantations appeared one after the other along the rivers of Suriname. All these plantations, of course, relied on African slaves whose treatment was notoriously bad. Many of these slaves managed to escape and, with the help of Native Americans, established a new and unique African culture deep inside the rainforests. They became known as the Maroons and basically became a separate ethnic group in its own right. But the ethnic diversification of Suriname didn't stop there. After the abolition of slavery in 1863, Javanese and Indian indentured workers were brought in to work on plantations. After that, Chinese and Middle Eastern workers were also brought in for the same purpose. As a result of this complex colonization and exploitation, Suriname became one of the most ethnically diverse countries in the world. What is historically known as British Guiana is today the independent Republic of Guyana. Here, it was the Dutch who first established colonies. They, of course, didn't find an empty land, but a region already inhabited by Arawak and Carib tribes divided into several subgroups. Initially, the Dutch wanted to establish trade relations with the locals, but as time progressed, they also focused their attention on land acquisition. The Spanish, who had a presence in the West, also wanted control of this place and periodically harassed these Dutch colonies. But in the end, the Dutch won out. Just like in neighboring Suriname, here too plantations became a source of wealth, and here too African slaves were brought to work. Their working conditions were brutal, to say the least. So brutal that they revolted several times and almost gained control over the colony had it not been for the intervention of European troops from surrounding areas. After that, British immigrants were allowed to come to Guyana to establish more plantations, and gradually they became a major ethnic group. These lands switched hands between the Dutch, French and British until 1831, when the area was ceded to Britain and remained so until 1966. Before we continue, I'd like to ask you something. This channel has no sponsors, so if you enjoy the content I make, please consider supporting these videos by becoming a patron. You can check out my Patreon page by clicking here or find the link in the description. Okay, now we can move on to the next fact. French Guiana is not an independent country. It's an integral part of France and, by extension, the European Union. The first to try to establish a colony here were the Italians, sent by Ferdinando de' Medici, Grand Duke of Tuscany. But when the Duke died, the expedition also failed. France's attempt to colonize the area came afterwards and failed horribly, as thousands of settlers died from tropical diseases, harsh climate, and famine. They were also harassed and attacked by the Portuguese to the south, and of course the indigenous tribes who viewed them as invaders. Later, the Dutch also attacked and seized these French possessions. Eventually, the French slowly consolidated their presence, established plantations and, you guessed it, brought in African slaves. For a while, the French even established a penal colony on Ile du Diable, or Devil's Island, and other islands. Less than 10% of those prisoners survived their sentence. While France's involvement in the region seems chaotic at best, the region is still under French rule to this day. Okay, that's enough history. What about today? What's going on in these places in our times? Well, Suriname, for instance, gained independence in 1975, but remains a close ally of Netherlands. Culturally, they're considered to be a Caribbean country, but Dutch is the sole official language spoken by most people, with Sranantongo, an English-based Creole language, used as a lingua franca. It's the only country outside of Europe where Dutch is spoken by a majority of people, and one of only 2 countries in South America where a non-Latin language is widely spoken. But, as I said, this is one of the most diverse places in the world. Afro-Surinamese, who are divided into several groups, make up a thin majority, followed by East Indians, Javanese, Chinese, Lebanese, Jews, and a small number of Europeans and indigenous people. Economically, they're not doing very well, although there are certainly worse-off countries in the world. Aside from the incredible ethnic diversity, another strong suit of Suriname is its biodiversity. 30% of the land is protected by law, and it's a magnet for tourists and scientists alike. Suriname is still struggling to find its place among the developed nations in the world, but sooner or later it will get there. Guyana is today the only English-speaking nation in South America and the second non-Latin country on this continent. That being said, most people speak Guyanese Creole, which is based on English but with some differences. Culturally, they are considered to be a Caribbean nation, like Suriname. The legacy of colonial rule is reflected in the country's diverse population, which includes Indian, African, Amerindian, and multiracial groups. To this day, sugar production is a big part of the economy, and just like their neighbor, Guyana is also struggling to prosper. But they are on the rise and have a good chance of becoming a rich nation. Like Suriname, Guyana is also a leading nation in biodiversity, and unlike other areas in South America, over 70% of all natural habitats remain pristine. It's hard to comprehend what this means, but just think about this. There are about 8,000 plant species growing in Guyana. Half of them can be found nowhere else but here. As for French Guiana, they are a part of France and the EU, which means they also use the euro as their currency. They are the largest economy of the Guyanas and the 11th largest in South America. That, however, is largely thanks to the large subsidies that come from mainland France. In essence, they're among the poorest departments of France. On the other hand, the Guiana spaceport, used by the ESA, Arianespace, and the French space agency CNES for space launches, is still in operation and brings in a lot of money. Their natural habitat is exceptionally pristine. Check this out. 98.9% of French Guiana is still covered by forests. The Guyana Amazonian Park, which is the largest national park in the European Union, covers 41% of its territory. Ethnically, they are also a diverse bunch. Most have an African or mixed ancestry, with Maroons being the most numerous groups. But there's also a large European community, descendants of French, Dutch, British, Spanish, and Portuguese settlers. Just like in the other Guyanas, there are large Chinese, East Indian, Lebanese and Vietnamese groups, but also many Haitians and other Caribbeans live here. And 3 to 4% of the nation is represented by the indigenous Amerindian tribes. I hope this video was interesting enough to have inspired you to look into it further on your own. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe. You can leave your comments downstairs, and you can also check out my Patreon page if you want to support me. The link is in the description. I hope to see you next time. Bye.